Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. I am Michelle Howard. I'm the director of the Small Business Programs Office. I want to thank you this morning for being here. I bring greetings from our general manager, Mr. Randy Clark, and our VP and Chief Procurement Officer, Ms. Fifi Magosi. Welcome to WMATA's Small Business Programs Office. This is our virtual educational presentation to help support you in your business, and thank you for your participation today. The presentation that you're going to hear about today is Basic Legal Needs for Every Business, Small or Large, by Doug Lineberry. This is also in collaboration with our partners at the DC Small Business Development Center. We always make sure that we try to bring you the best educational presentations from our subject matter experts, and they help us to partner to make this happen. So thank you to our Small Business Development Center network in DC at Howard University. At WMATA, your participation is key, and we encourage all small businesses to get certified with WMATA. So please check out our website, learn more about our programs, and please reach out to our team. We are here to answer your questions. We are definitely open for business, and we want you to be a part of our contracting opportunities. We are your metro, the way forward. Please put all questions in the chat and remember to fill out your surveys that will be sent to you after the presentation. These surveys are very important to us, so we need that feedback. It helps us to plan programs and events that can benefit or support your business development and growth. So please make sure that you return those back to us. Again, I want to thank you for attending, and you will definitely enjoy this session. I'm going to bring on my partner, my friend, Mr. Charles Mott from the DC Small Business Development Center at Howard University here in Washington, DC. He is currently the associate director there. He has both an administrative and a business counseling responsibilities there. Charles has 40 years or more in defense and management consulting industry with large and small firms in management and team leadership capacity. He has over 30 years of experience and knowledge in the small business management and leadership management as a business owner, an employee, a business counselor, and a consultant with different small firms. He has a certificate in project management from the University of California in Berkeley, also an MBA in new ventures and small business management from Cal State. He is a certified project management professional with the Project Management Institute. And I'm about to hand it over to my friend, my partner, Charles Mott. Thank you, Charles.
Michelle, thank you so much. I can't believe I have 40 years of experience and I'm only 35.
Hey, I know, right?
You
I
know,
love it though.
well, welcome, folks. I bring you greetings from the DC Small Business Development Center at Howard University from our executive director, Carl Brown, and the staff there. For those of you who are on this broadcast and don't know, the DCSBDC is a small business resource that provides technical assistance, assistance with access to capital, assistance to industry reports, and we collaborate on events such as this and events we do ourselves. So we do a lot of different things. I'll drop our link in the chat for those of you who are not connected with us right now. We also have an extensive list of webinars, many of which we collaborate with Metro on. Without further ado, I want to introduce today's speaker. Doug and I have known each other since last year, but it seems like based upon our conversations, we've known each other for a lifetime. I'm going to read only a portion of his bio because he does have an extensive bio. For those of you who want a deeper read on Doug's bio, the link you went to register for this event, his full bio is available if you click on his picture. But whether he is assisting clients with the protection of intellectual property through patent, trademark, and copyright prosecution or intellectual property litigation, Doug focuses on building relationships founded on trust and constant communication. Doug successfully prosecutes patent applications for mechanical, medical, and chemical technologies. He helps clients with establishing and protecting trademark portfolios, guarding against improper third-party use, and conducting enforcement actions. He advises his clients on all matters involving intellectual property, trade secrets, branding, and marketing issues, and contractual and other business matters. Doug is a friend of the DC SBDC and now Metro, and he's also a friend of other SBDCs around the country, including the one in his home state. He's an advocate for the success of small business through protection of their IP. On a personal note, Doug is engaging and versed in a variety of topics. I know in our conversation, we probably spent more time on common interest than we have on planning webinars for him to facilitate. And by the way, he has another upcoming webinar with Metro that I'm sure Michelle is going to talk about, and he has a couple others with us in the next month. So Doug is going to be a busy person. Without further ado, I want to go ahead and bring him on so that he can share some great information. So Doug, take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Charles. That was too kind. And you guys don't fall for Charles's stuff. I'm terrible. But I am happy to see you guys today. I moved firms on Monday, and I was telling everybody that y'all are going to be the exciting part of my Wednesday. I'm really looking forward to this. One thing, we've got about 30 people on today, which is fantastic. I want you guys to know that chat and the questions are there for you. If you have a question, please put it in chat. We will find it. We will answer it. There are no dumb questions. The only dumb question is the one that we didn't ask. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to go through basic legal needs for entrepreneurs and businesses, and we're going to talk about how AI impacts that as well. But I want you guys to feel very free about asking any question you've got. Reginald, Anthony, I'm talking to you, Danielle, Monique, Alex, Akia, anybody who's got a question, ask. You know, every question is a great one, because you might be thinking, oh gosh, I'm a little shy and I don't want to ask this. I promise you, somebody else has a similar question kind of percolating. So Salima, Angelique, any of y'all, Bo, all of y'all out there, feel free to ask questions. That was what we want you to do today, and that's why you're here. You know, we want everybody to be comfortable, and at the end of the session, we want you to be like, hey, you know, this is great. I got stuff out of this, and I asked questions that I needed an answer to. Now, what we'll do right now, guys, is I'm going to share screen. And Charles, are you guys seeing my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. And again, everybody, feel free. I've got the chat pulled up on another screen, so this is going to work out like a champ. My name again, and Charles told y'all way too much about me. I'm just a nerd IP attorney. I do trademarks, patents, copyrights, and trade secrets. But what we want to do today is we want to talk about, hey, let's protect a business. Let's protect your business. This is one of my favorite quotes. Edward A. Murphy, you've always heard about Murphy's Laws. He actually was a rocket science. When I was putting together this presentation, I found this out and I was like, man, how funny that the guy who says that if it can't go wrong, it will go wrong. And if it can't go wrong, the one that does the most damage will be the one to happen. That's how I want y'all to look at our small businesses. You know, not that, hey, something's going to happen. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to guard against things happening. We want it to be so that you guys know, hey, you know, here are my options from a business. Here's some things I should be looking out for. And again, ask any and all questions you've got. Type them in the chat. Anything you're curious about. Shannon, I'm talking to you. Shalonda, I'm talking to you. Dawn, I'm talking to you. Anybody who wants to ask a question, please feel free. Now, for our businesses, one thing I want you to know is there's certain things that are forbidden. And they're forbidden not because, hey, we don't want you to do something fun. They're forbidden because we don't want you to get in trouble. And by this, I mean, when you set up a corporation, when you set up a business, I want you to either be an LLC, an S Corp, or a C Corp. That's what I want you to be. You know, all of these essentially are protection against the wolves at your door. And if you're doing a business that interacts with people, if you're doing a business that provides medical care, foodstuffs, I don't care what it is, guys, you provide car parts. If you have a business that it deals with the public, you want to make certain that you do what's right to protect you. And I never want a situation to where you guys are like, hey, I'm a partnership. hey, I'm a sole proprietorship, or hey, I'm going to do a DBA. We don't want that happening. And Marlo, you may be asking, hey, why, Doug? Why do we care about that? The problem is that let's say you get in a car wreck, and I've got boy-girl twins. Kid y'all not, my daughter had her first wreck on Sunday. She hit a lady, and my daughter's fault. She totally claimed it. We have two very close lights at an intersection where a ramp comes up off another road. She was looking at the second light, and the second light was green, the first light was red. She's 16, so of course she drove through it, scraped somebody's car. Everybody's okay, but she owned it. And she was like, hey, my fault, Dad. I was looking at the second light. I realized it about the time I was in an intersection, too late, hit the other car. And that's what I don't want to happen to y'all, because if you're in a car wreck, and let's say it was a bad one, and unfortunately people were hurt and things happened, you may be sued. And I don't want any of you to ever get sued. But if you get sued, I want your business to be in a corporate entity. Because if you're a partnership or a sole proprietorship or a DBA with nothing else behind it, y'all, if you get in a car wreck with somebody, that can turn into a situation to where they can come after your business. And we never want that to happen. We don't want a car wreck or a divorce or any sort of personal liability to ever leach over into your business. That just will drive you crazy, and I want to avoid that for everybody. So the first thing we do is we're going to set up an LLC, a C Corp, or an S Corp. You're probably going to start with an LLC. That's the typical preferred one for a small business. They're relatively simple, both to upkeep and to take care of as far as maintaining it. Another thing I want y'all to do is say, hey, when I'm looking for the name of my business, is it clear? One thing I do is I'm a trademark attorney, and I file trademarks all the time, and I love trademarks. They're very novel. It's kind of cool to see how people think and do very cool things on their own. But one thing we've got to be very cautious of is we don't want to be too close to somebody else. If we do a search and we find out that, hey, I want to be What's That Burger? And all of a sudden, here's Whataburger is out there. We've all eaten at a Whataburger, great burgers. But here's the thing. You can't have a What's a Burger and Whataburger is already out there. And you might think, hey, I've got an S in mine. I've got an apostrophe. I put mayonnaise on differently. I'm very different than these guys. What we don't want to have happen is to be too close to them. So after we set up our business, and again, there's a difference between your trademark name like McDonald's and the business you're operating with. So if you're at a Secretary of State site, whether that may be DC or Maryland or Virginia or South Carolina or wherever you're at, even though that Secretary of State says, hey, you can have this name, you still want to search the trademark, because those are apples and oranges. The Secretary of State says, hey, you can have the name Whataburger, because, Whataburger is going to be something like 123 LLC for burgers, etc. And so what we don't want to have happen is that we pick a name that we've got to unbrand. We pick a name that we have to undo. We pick a brand that triggers Whataburger to send us a cease and desist, and these nasty attorneys come out. So what we don't want to have happen is that comes up. So we've had a question from Angelique. Thank you, dear. Hello, my question is, I have a commercial office space. They misquoted me on CAM fees for the previous year and asked me to pay the difference. If they misquoted me, am I obligated to pay for their negligence? An LLC in DC. Awesome. So you see where Angelique's an LLC. She's already got that first step done. On this one, Angelique, you want to go back and look at your contract with them. And, Charles is right. If I don't know the answer, I'll tell you, but this is a basic contract question. So you want to go back and see what your writing was with them. You want to go back and make certain that they are going to be able to say, hey, what's this contract saying, what's in it? Because that's one thing I want us to do. And Angelique, that is an awesome question. Thank you very much. But we want stuff in writing, guys. And that, again, it's later in these slides. And that's why I like y'all's questions, because questions always lead us to better information. But with Angelique, you want to read what your agreement said. If they violated it, then guess what? Hold their feet to the fire, Angelique. If you didn't promise to pay it and it's not in the writing, guess what? You've got decent standing there. But I do want y'all's agreements in writing, because with Angelique, she's going to go back to this contract. She's going to say, hey, what happened here? What's a result of this? How does this work? And that's what I want all of y'all to know, is that these potentials are out there for everybody. And so go get it in writing. Now, registering your business name with the state, make certain, if you want to use the same name both ways, check the trademark office first. The reason we do that, gang, is we don't want a situation to where we put in a trademark name and it's somebody else's name or it's too close, because trademarks are like horseshoes and hand grenades. Close counts and it can blow off an arm. So I don't want anybody getting in trouble by being too close to somebody else. Here, we'll play a little game for a second if y'all want. Somebody throw me a name that you're thinking of for a business. We're going to go do a quick search at the USPTO to say, hey, let's see if we can get this trademark. So everybody, I'm kind of looking at the chat section now, and I'm going to pull up a website for us, and I'll share it as soon as we're ready. But somebody throw up a business name. It doesn't have to be your name. It could be just one. Awesome. Anthony Asuma has a great question. Candy Cane, Maine. That is awesome, Shanae. Thank you. So Shanae says, hey, I want to have this as the name of my business. And I just want to show y'all why we do these searches. And if the name of her business is going to be Candy Cane May, what we want to do is to make certain it's clean. We want to make certain that it's clear. And so y'all bear with me. I'm going to get us over here. Y'all should be looking at a very bland white website with a white or blue stripe across the top. Now, Shanae was nice enough to tell us, hey, and Michelle's got one too, Morning Service Company. We'll check them both. Anthony, I see your question. I will come back to that. But what we're going to do is let's check and say, hey, it is Candy Cane, Maine available as a business name. Now, unfortunately, for trademark searches nowadays, you kind of have to be an inexpert computer programmer. I've had to learn this over the past of it. But what we're doing is we're asking these guys, hey, Candy Cane, Maine, is there a mark out there for Candy Cane, Maine right now? So we're going to do a search for it. Boom. Shanae has a clean mark as far as a direct hit. This is what we call a knockout search. We don't see an identical hit to Shanae's name. Now what we're going to do is broaden it out and say, hey, now we want to say, look, are there variations of these words that might be used in a trademark that might cause problems for us? And we'll check it with these broader searches to say, hey, what's out there? Sorry, I added the M and I shouldn't have. But we want to check and do broad searches because we never want a situation to where we just check Candy Cane, Maine, give ourselves a thumb up and run away down the street. We want to make certain, hey, has this been done? Is somebody using it? Notice we've now gotten a lot of marks that popped up. And we've got like Candleman. And notice this pops up because we said we're looking for combinations of canned or can with man. And sure enough, Sir Candleman fits right in there with it. Now, the red ones, and this sounds cooler than it is, the red ones are dead. We don't have zombie trademarks. It just means that somebody did pay a fee or they missed a date. So what I don't want to have happen is for you guys to be worrying about these other marks. Now, notice I said, hey, just show me the green. I just want to see the marks that have been paid for that are currently pending. And notice that brings us to a much more focused search. So now we're looking for Candy Cane, Maine. And are we seeing anything that is too close to that? Here's a lot of Candyman marks. Notice too, we've got a Candyman mark over here for backpacks, hoodies, clothing. We've got another Candyman mark for essential oils and also some different types of clothing. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if these two can coexist. And that's why I would tell you guys, like, you see the Candyman package right here for paper bags. It is pretty distinct from these two. So they're probably fine with respect to it. But look down here for Candyman with bakery goods and candy and chocolates, etc. I want you guys to be very crazy when you come up with a mark. And I do mean crazy. The reason I say that is that, if you were to pick Candyman, there's all kinds of Candyman here. Look right here. And this is funny. This is clever. Candyman. But it is a canned man. Like, hey, I've got a can of soft drink. There are different ways you can do it, but I do want y'all to be very particular about your marks. Now, let's go ahead and look at Michelle's mark real quick. And Polito, I see yours, and we will check it. De La Lumpia. And I'm going to check Morning Service Company because I think Michelle handed me a softball. She's wanting us to see, hey, is there anything close to this? Morning Service Company. And again, we do our knockout. We want to say, hey, is there anything identical to my mark? Is there anything dead on? Michelle's done it too, just like Shanae. We don't have an identical hit, but we are going to broaden that out because we can't just see this and give ourselves a pat on the back and run down the street. We've got to do a situation where we're like, hey, I'm going to have to dig into this a little bit. And notice when I put these asterisks on here, that's going to bring up serve, serviced, serving, all the suffix variations. then that's the way we want to check this. And this is way, if you guys would ever call me and say, hey, Doug, I need a trademark, we're going to do this. We're going to do it on an ad nauseum scale. Now, then we're going to do the search to see what happens. Wow. So look at that. Michelle has a clean one. There are no current U.S. marks that use morning and service and company in conjunction, nor do they use these variants. Now, we'll broaden it out way broad for a second. We'll see how many marks use variations of serve and comp together. This is going to be off the chart, y'all. Let's see how many we get. Oh, wow, 1,200 hits. So we're not even going to begin to go through those. We'll look at the living ones real quick just to see what they look like. That narrows us down to 320. We'd be checking marks for the next couple hours. We don't want to do that. But when you are doing this and you're like, hey, this is my mark, you do want to go through this. You know, that or you'll have me or one of my brothers or sisters go through this for you to check on it. Now, let's go back to Polito, and then we're going to go back to Anthony. So Polito said, hey, we all checked my mark. And his mark is going to be Dalis Lumpia LLC. And now the use of LLC, Polito, I love the fact that you put that in there for me. You don't have to use that in your trademark. Some companies do, most don't. And the reason is, what if you're an LLC today and you get bigger and you become a C Corp? Now all of a sudden your trademark's LLC. What I would tell you to do on that one, Polito, is to take out the LLC. Don't include that in your trademark name. Being part of your business name is absolutely fine, but don't put it in your trademark name, because if you get bigger, all of a sudden you're going to have LLC in your name. The Patent and Trademark Office can be really picky about cutting stuff out of a trademark. You may file it, let's say we file it today, January 14th, 26. In 2 years, you're a C Corp, and you're like, yeah, Doug, time to renew the mark. Here's how I'm using it. And it just says Dalis Lumpia. If it doesn't have the LLC on it, we can get pushback from the Trademark Office saying, hey, I don't think that works. I don't think this is good. So let's do a search on Polito's mark. Awesome. So Polito, this is beautiful. We don't have anything using your knockout. Now let's knock off the LLC to see what pops up with it. Again, beautiful, no hits. Now we're going to do the same thing we did the last time. And notice Polito's using very distinct spelling here. It's got a really strong mark, because we're not seeing anything like it. And that's what you want too. You know, we saw all those Candyman marks that are grouped together, guys. Don't think that way. Go a little crazy. You know, do like Shanae, do like Michelle, pick up a mark that's like, hey, Reginald, I see your question. I'll get right there for you, my friend. And you do get the Charles discount. We call it the Lego discount, because Charles has got a fund and he's got to upkeep those Legos. But let's go back to Polito's check, and Anthony will get back to you, and then we'll hit Richard. Boom. All right, Polito, my friend, this is as clean gets. You're most welcome, Polito. I said thanks for the advice, but this is a great set of marks. Shanae, Michelle, and Polito, y'all picked really good marks. They're distinct. There's nothing out there, but y'all saw those Candyman marks, and I don't want y'all getting caught in that trap. You know, don't be too similar to somebody else. It's always good to sing your own song. Now, let's go back to Anthony. Anthony says, hey, a single member LLC is also considered a sole proprietorship. Does it still have the full protection of an LLC? You want to be very careful on that one, Anthony. You definitely want your LLC in there. And whether it's called a sole proprietorship or not depends on the situation and the context. But I never, ever, ever want you to just be a sole proprietorship. Being an LLC is beautiful, but if we don't have an LLC set up in DC, Maryland, Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, wherever you're at, if we don't have an LLC set up, we're in trouble. So we never want them to be able to default to you being a sole proprietorship. But a single member LLC is awesome. That's an LLC. You've gone through it. The wolves are not at your straight. That is awesome. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing, and we're going to go back to our presentation. Now, Reginald asks, hey, what are your rates fee for a trademark and or copyright for a small business? You guys get discounts if you're kind enough to come to me. I've been working with the SBDCs. Y'all can tell I'm really old and got a lot of gray hair. It's not just my kids who do that to me. But small businesses do get a discount from me. What I would tell y'all to aim for a trademark is about, $950 for a small business for the attorney's fee, $350 for the government fee. The government makes you pay a fee every time you do it. That's why I'm going to tell y'all shortly on in these slides, Don't go to LegalZoom. Don't go to these other places, because you do want someone who's going to take care of you. You want a Doug who can pick up a phone and listen to you and say, hey, Doug, what does this mean? How does this happen? Where are we on this? Because I don't want a situation, guys, to where y'all are stuck without counsel. A lot of these places, if you use them, will be like, hey, use us and we'll take care of you. Problem will be is that if you use them and then something happens that's difficult, or something happens that requires some input on their part, they're going to abandon you. But y'all, that was awesome. And guys, real quick, can y'all see the screen? I had a little thing popped up and said, oh no, sharing suddenly stopped.
We can see it, Doug.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, Charles. And so remember, guys, that trademark search is first. Let's get us a clean name. Then we're going to go to our Secretary of State. And then we're going to obtain the employee identification number, because guess what? Our friends in the federal government want us to have that number. And they also want it so they can tell you from everybody else, that you can say, hey, this is my company. Look at how my documentation is nice and straight. I don't have a lot of problems here, because that's ultimately what we want from you guys, is there to never be a problem when you're too close to somebody else. Now, here's our legal steps for every business. Register with the state. I'm in South Carolina. We're lovingly called South Khaki, so I didn't have a stroke and just start typing letters. But, for clients here, you register with it. Now, one thing I'll tell you guys, there is it's not an urban legend, but there's always been talk about, hey, if you're going to form a company, if you've got an LLC or C Corp or an S Corp, you go to Delaware, you go to Wyoming, you go to Nebraska. They've got the best laws for everybody. I'll tell you this, they do have good laws. But let's say you guys are in Maryland, or you're in DC, or you're in Virginia. If you register there, and if you're doing business in one of those states, and you register in either Wyoming or Nebraska or Delaware, you can be hit with double fees. You may have to maintain the LLC in one of those 3 states, because it's going to be required. There'll be fees. There's going to be things that you have to provide to them to say, hey, I'm still a company. But the state you're actually doing business in will require something too. Because, when you register with that state, you have to do that for your business. You can't just go into a state and start selling stuff out of the back of a wagon. That doesn't work. That stopped in like the 1800s. But what we want to do is to make certain that you guys are okay, that you're registered. But I'll tell you, you can have too much of a good thing. We don't want a situation to where you're paying all these fees. Say you went crazy and you're saying, hey, I want a Delaware and a Nebraska and a Wyoming, and I'm in Maryland. Well, you're paying Maryland because that's where you're doing your business, and there's going to be taxation and all that stuff, but then you'll have to pay for upkeep of those others. So there's a really good portion to stop and think for a second of, hey, is it necessary that I go to Delaware, or necessary that I go to Wyoming or Nebraska for the sort of carte blanche protections? Because a lot of the other states are just as good. They might not be a limousine. You might be driving a really nice Honda Camry or a Toyota Camry, but it'll get the job done, and it's a great car, and it doesn't cost a lot. So I want y'all to be aware of that. Your licenses and your permits. If you're healthcare, if you're construction, there's going to be federal, state, and local regimes here that you've got to make certain of. So you want to make certain that you've checked out, hey, do I need to register? Are there things I need to do for my business? Am I doing the right thing to keep everything on par? Next, obtain business insurance. Now, guys, I can't stress this one enough. It is so funny when you talk to a business and they're like, insurance. I'm like, y'all, insurance is day 0. You guys will appreciate this. Y'all can tell I'm real shy and I don't talk much. But what we want to have happen here is that I want you guys to understand that I was a presentation probably 12, 15 years ago. I had a lot more brown hair than gray. And we had a lady who said, hey, I've just opened up my business. I'm getting ready to set everything up. They're finishing the shop tonight. I will be open full time on Friday. We're just trying to get things done. And so this question came up. It's like, hey, do you have insurance? And she goes, what? I'm like, yeah. And she was a hairdresser. She's like, what do I need insurance for? I'm like, well, if you burned up somebody's hair, trust me, they're going to be upset. But I'm like, well, what about the workers that are at your building right now? You tell me what they're doing right now. And y'all, this is about 7:30 on a Tuesday night. And she turned white as a ghost, y'all. I mean, just the color drained from her face. I'm like, no, seriously, tell me, what are they doing at your business right now? And she goes, well, I've got an electrician working in the ceiling to wire some things up, and I've got a painter. And I'm like, and you're telling me that you don't have any insurance? And she's like, no. I'm like, okay, well, here's what just happened. And I was going a little dark on her, but you have to sometimes tell a horror story to get a good result. And I said, look, your electrician just fell out of the drop ceiling, just came crashing through those tiles and fell on top of the painter. And now those two are down there on the floor, just kind of all tangled up and hurt. You don't have insurance. So you are on the hook personally. Again, that's why we set up our LLC. That's why we secure those businesses, is that we do not want a situation where you guys are personally liable. I don't want y'all's wallet being held up to the camera going, this is where the money comes from. I want there to be insurance. I want there to be a LLC in place to take care of you guys. And again, that's general liability insurance, property insurance. My electrician fell out, landed on the painter, workers' comp. Hey, I've hired a bunch of hairdressers to work for me. One of them's wrist is starting to act up with carpal tunnel. There may need to be workers' comp there. So you guys will have to check on that to make certain that, hey, I'm obeying the regimes I'm in, and I've got an insurance culpability coverage that will take care of that. Now, our create key legal documents. Now, we talked about Angelique's situation earlier. You want those docs. And guys, if you have a company, you want an operating agreement. What that is essentially the bylaws. It is the way this company's going to work. And if it's you and other people, you absolutely want one. I don't care if it's your best friend. I don't care if it's your mom. You have a situation to where if something happens, it needs to be in writing, because that's what Angelique's going to do. She's going to go back and check to see what her writing says. And in your operating agreement, let's say, you guys are 3 years out and nobody remembers what you agreed on. If something happens, like if somebody gets a divorce or somebody dies or something happens to somebody, what's that do to the business? You want that in your operating agreement. You want that in writing, signed by everybody. Vendor agreements, same situation. If somebody's a vendor for you, if they're providing services or goods, I want it in writing. Now, guys, I used to be a litigator back in the day before I became a general patent attorney. One of the most notorious cases I had went for about 3 years. And it was two best friends who got into an argument about how a car dealership was going to be divvied up between them. There were no writings. And the owner of the car dealership, and I swear I'm not making up these facts, he had a critical head injury that caused him to lose all kinds of long-term memory, and he could not remember what they had agreed to between each other. And so understand, this is like a crazy situation, but if it had been in writing, we would have known, hey, this should be done this way. That should have happened that way. Put it in writing. Same with your employees. You want a situation to where the employee knows, hey, you have to dress this way. I need you to work at this time. I need you to do this, and let's say you're a baker. Hey, I'm going to be exposing you to trade secret recipes. You can't reverse engineer them. You can't run off and start up your own business. Depending on the state you're in, non-compete agreements can be a great thing for you, and I want y'all to look at it. Oh, yeah. Deborah just asked, hey, will this be shared? Absolutely. Shanae has a copy of it that you guys can have. It's got my contact info on it. It'll have all the slides. It's all there for y'all to have. So, no, great question, Deborah, but you guys will get a copy of this. And notice we're putting it in writing. You guys will get a copy of the presentation. So I'm practicing what I'm preaching. Is I want you guys to, you're most welcome, Desmond. But I want you guys to understand, hey, Doug is doing what he's telling us to do. Like I joined a new firm on Monday. I have completed so much paperwork that I think my fingers are starting to turn into ink pens. But we put it in writing. We make certain that it's okay. Now, our intellectual property, we really knocked out our trademarks. And thanks again to everybody for letting me do that, because that's a great real world example of, hey, here's what we're looking at. Here's what we're trying to think of. What we're wanting to do here also is realize you may have other things than trademarks. You may have patents. If you come up with how something works or how it looks, you may have copyrights. When we were asked earlier, Paulito said, hey, or I'm sorry, I think it was Richard asked about our pricing for copyrights. Copyrights and trade secrets are slightly different creatures. I'm sorry, y'all, I hit too many buttons right there. But they're slightly different creatures, but they do overlap. If any of you guys have ever had a logo designed for your company, like a logo of a little person or a landscape or just a cool little emblem that you use, even though that might be your trademark for your company, there is a copyright ownership there too. We want to make certain that your company owns that outright. Now, if you used AI to create it, you're going to want to go back and do some homework and find out, hey, when I use this AI, do I own what it creates? We'll talk about this in a little bit, but I know that AI is the flavor of the week, the flavor of the month, the flavor of the year. Everybody uses AI. I want you guys to be very careful, though. I don't want a situation to where AI might get you in trouble. And if you used a human to do it, holler at me. I can send you what is called a copyright assignment, what we'll do is get that artist, and that's the person who created your logo, the artist. If they came up with whole cloth, you went in and said, hey, I'm a butcher and I need a real cool logo, and they create a logo for you, that artist has an ownership interest in it, even though you paid them, even though you gave them $500, $100, $1,000, whatever you paid. There's an ownership interest there that we have to make certain comes to your company. And notice I did not say to Marlo or to Shanae or Anthony or Reginald or anybody like that. I said to your company, because all of this IP, whether it's a trademark or patent or a copyright or whatever, has to come to your company. Now, your trade secrets. I'll ask a real quick question on the chat. Who in here has a trade secret for their company? And feel free just to type in I do or me or whatever feels good. But who here has a trade secret for their company that their company uses? And I'll give you guys a couple seconds to ponder that. Who has a trade secret with their company? And again, y'all, there's no wrong answer. Feel free to chat, to type, whatever works for y'all. I don't see any responses yet. So I'll sit here and give y'all another few seconds to debate on it. Awesome. Now, Dawn, you realize you can't tell me what your trade secret is. Please don't do that. But what industry are you in? And I'm waiting on Dawn to type back. But everybody else, Dawn gets a gold star because I'm going to put this in the chat so everybody can see it. Health and beauty. Thank you, Dawn. But here's the trick of what really the trade secret means. Now, I'm writing this out, so we'll drive it home with a clear point. And notice I used all caps. I'm not yelling at you. I just want everybody to see this one. Everybody here has a trade secret. And Nader's like, I don't. Reginald's like, I swear I don't. Marcia's like, I promise you I don't have one. Danielle's like, no, not me. Y'all do. You have, even if you're not an existing company, you're thinking of a business plan. You're thinking of what you're going to do. I love it. IKEA's like, not me. I'm promising you, IKEA, you're thinking about where you're going to put your business. You're thinking about how that business is going to expand. You're thinking about the vendors that you've got. What you need to do is to think of this in a broader way, is to say, guess what? I've got multiple trade secrets. Hey, who are my vendors? What do they price me? Those are trade secrets. A lot of people think, oh, a trade secret, that's like Coca-Cola secret recipe. I don't have that. I don't know the Chick-fil-A sauce recipe. I don't have the Colonel Sanders recipe. That's one element of a trade secret, but there are a lot of elements to it. How you run your business is a good trade secret. Like if you got a particular manufacturing setup and machine A goes to B, goes to C because it's more efficient. If your competitors don't know that, y'all, it's a trade secret. And you want that protected when you're dealing with, you're welcome. Reginald said, great points about trade secrets, Doug. You're most welcome. Deborah wrote back, Deborah nailed this one to the wall. The contents in a business plan, that's absolutely a trade secret. If you guys ever go to a pitch, like a Shark Tank or one of those things, and you're going to start talking about the company, I want this 80,000 foot elevator level. You're on the elevator with me and Dawn, and we're just talking generally what we do. Because notice Dawn's at Health Beauty. She didn't tell me I have the greatest hair dye ever. It's permanent, and it'll change color in sunlight. And here's how you make it. She said, I'm in Health and Beauty. I want all of y'all to emulate that. You absolutely all have trade secrets. Need to understand that moving forward, because I want you all to leave today thinking, hey, this IP thing, it's not just for the Fortune 500 companies. It's for the one man or woman company. It is for the company that has a single employee. It is those companies that have it too. Got to protect it or we lose it. For trade secrets, you keep it shit. Because when Dawn said she had one, you know what I said. Anthony, I see your question. I'll get back to you. And the same, Anthony's got two, and I'll get back to you on both of them. But what I want y'all to know is it's out there. So trade secrets are shit. We don't tell anybody. Coke doesn't go put it on a billboard. That's how you make Coke. You don't ever see somebody saying, hey, to better fix the covering for this trademarked protective otter box, here's what we do. Here's how you make it. Don't happen. Your copyrights, you want to register those. Your trademarks, you want to file for those and register them. Trademarks and patents are first to file wins, meaning that if you were Candyman, the original one we saw back there for candy, it's going to be really tough for somebody else to get Candyman or Candyman, like we saw that one variant. It's going to be tough to get that. You want to be the first person at the trademark office when you're ready for your trademark. Same thing for patents. You want to file them. You want to get them out there. You want them protected. So remember, we do want to do that. Now let's go over to Anthony. Anthony's first question was, do you recommend a small business to agree to sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, with a potential prime partner that they intend to team with for project contracts? If so, what state or jurisdiction should govern the NDA? Not knowing where the next project will be won or executed. So there's some uncertainty there. Or should the NDA be per project contract so that it is governed by the specific location for the project contract? Anthony knows his own answer, and I love how he phrased it this way. Anthony, it's going to depend on where you're at. Because if you're saying, hey, we've got an NDA, you might want a big glossy one. You want one that covers everything. And that way you have to never touch it again. Those could potentially be really too broad. If you've got one that's going to be carried out in a particular locale, you will probably want that locale to control. Now, you've got the ability to say, hey, I want my NDA to be covered by Delaware law or Maryland law, or South Carolina. You've absolutely got the ability for that. But I do think you're going to get pushback on it if you're contracting with somebody who wants a job done in, say, Baltimore, and you're saying, hey, I want Arkansas law to control. I want Idaho law to control. I want Los Angeles, California law to control. You can get pushback on that one. And now I do advise the use of an NDA. If you're giving over, and y'all, trade secrets are never given over without something signed, sealed, and delivered. Confidential info, the same thing. Confidential info could be like, the lists of your employees, how much these folks are paid. That could be a trade secret too. So they kind of do cross over. But I do not want you guys to just be going and talking to somebody. If you ever offer an NDA to somebody and they balk, I need the hair to come up on the back of your neck, and you just kind of turn back to the elevator and tell them, hey, have a great afternoon, and get out. I don't want a situation to where you guys go into somebody thinking, hey, I need this deal. I've got to have this deal. This deal's the only deal. That's never the case. But I don't want you guys in a situation to where you tell things you should not tell and you don't have a non-disclosure agreement in place. Now, going back to Anthony's again. He had an additional sentence to that last question. Or should it be governed by the laws of the location where the prime is? It'll depend. And if the prime's bigger than you, Anthony, they may throw one back at you and say, hey, here's the contract. Here's what you're going to agree to. You may have to say, hey, guess what? Am I right or wrong on this? Do I like this venue? And because, if you're doing a project for them, Anthony, you're out there and something goes wrong or an employee's hurt or something, the venue of that jurisdiction can apply. Now, if you don't want it to apply, there's certain ways you can agree to that. You can have what is called a no contest as far as the law goes. You want to say, hey, Anthony, let's just say for purposes of just a pick, you're in Maryland. And you're like, I want Maryland law to control. Or, hey, I like South Carolina. I want South Carolina law to control. You can say, hey, this will control, and there's going to be no conflict of law provisions, meaning whatever happens, this controls. Be prepared, though, if you've got another side that's somewhere else geographically, they may push back on that. You may have to horse trade to get to an answer you want. Akia, she asks, what would you say a trademark secret is for a property management company? That is a great question, Akia, because I love how Akia's like, I ain't got one. How do you do? Your pricing. How do you market to folks? What do you do to bring people in? Do you want to go to your competitor and say, hey, I have had a brain stroke. I have found a new way to market. I can bring in employees. We're going to make it so that we're going to get in all these new tenants. You'll never tell that to anybody, Akia. The way you market, how much you pay for that marketing, who you use to marketing, guess what? Those are trade secrets. And I know it seems crazy. And you're like, Doug, I'm just hiring a vendor. But your opponents don't know that. Your competitors don't know that, Akia. They don't know how you formulate this. They don't know how you come up with it. They may see your pricing, but they don't know how you arrived at that pricing. They don't know that, hey, I can get this number at this very reasonable level because of these things we do in-house that our competitors don't know about that help us save money. So, Akia, you're lathered in, my dear. There are tons of trade secrets in that industry. Anthony's got another one. I had a partner offer me an NDA governed by the laws of a foreign country. Wow. Where their office is located in a U.S. state. I found that strange. Did I overreact? I don't think so, Anthony. This is a negotiation point. And everybody on here today, we've got 30 people attending. And Charles, this is something, or Shanae or Michelle, it's something we definitely need to do at some point. We need to have a presentation on how to negotiate. how to go into something. And, everybody nowadays just thinks, oh, they threw a document at me, I got to sign it. Y'all, I'm an attorney. That's never the case. You can negotiate, you can haggle. Anthony, did you overreact? I don't think so. Now granted, if you threw your shoe at them and then rushed out of the building, maybe. But if you're just having a conversation with them, they're like, hey, I want this to be covered by Dubai law. And you're like, man, we're doing the project in Maryland. I want it to be covered by this law. That's something you're going to want to push back on. That is something that you won't handle, because remember too, if it says, hey, it's going to be Dubai law, I promise you it said Dubai courts. You might be under Sharia law. You may be under an entirely different legal system. So I want y'all to know that, hey, there's no overreaction here. There is what we call haggling. There is what we call having a conversation. There is what we call negotiating, but there is no overreaction. Granted, don't throw your shoe at them. If you did that, Anthony, shame on you, but doesn't matter. I get it. I wouldn't want to buy law either. Anthony writes back, I was concerned about potential arbitration, litigation location, or familiarity of U.S. lawyers if I needed rep. Anthony, that's a beautiful question. And that is a beautiful thought that you had. Because think of it, guys, if you agree that, hey, let's just say Ireland, we'll pick a country. We're going to have, I know Ireland's part of Britain and or used to be part of the EU, so a lot of overlap there. But let's say you want Irish law to control. And the other party's like, hey, we're doing the work in California. You are going to want to push back on it, because Anthony raises an awesome point. Is he going to be able to go to like a California attorney and say, hey, I've got an Irish lawsuit, or I need to bring suit against this person, or wait, they've sued me. Can you help me? The California attorney is going to be like, unless they have some unique pedigree, probably not. So there is nothing wrong with those concerns, Anthony. I'm glad you brought them up, because what that does is it helps you focus in on what you're worried about. And again, don't think worry is a bad thing. A contract is a thought. I mean, worry over as in I'm paying attention to it. I want to make certain the details are right, because this is an object that happens a lot in a contract. Are you okay with it? Because if I see foreign law venues, like the Ireland one popped out to me because I've got a client looking at operating a golf tournament. The company they're using is in Ireland. And so guess what? The other company said, hey, Irish law is going to control. Anything that happened will be stationed in Dublin. And I bring that to the client's attention. I'm like, are you okay with this? Said, we may want to push back on this. We want to pick a neutral forum. Maybe if you can't have your cake, they can't have their cake too. If they're saying California and somebody's saying Ireland, say, hey, okay, I'll tell you what, let's pick New Jersey. Neither of us have a horse in that game. It's right sort of central-wise between us, geography-wise. Let's pick a neutral site, kind of like a football game, to where, two big conferences play at a neutral site to where nobody's got a home field advantage. It's okay to do that. It's okay to haggle, guys. It really is. Now, you may have to give on another point or take on a point to be able to accomplish what you want, but I don't want anybody to ever take a contract as one size fits all. Now, I know you're all thinking, hey, I'm a small business. You still got negotiation power. They're wanting something from you. You can get things from them. So I want you guys to always think that. But it also harkens back to our original point. We want it in writing. Notice Anthony has been so awesome. And Anthony, if I call you AJ, I'm so sorry. I have an Anthony client that goes by AJ, and when I see Anthony, I translate. But for Anthony's case, he's asking the right questions. He's like, I've got a writing. I'm going to sign a writing. Should I sign this writing? Do I like these terms? But all phrased in the context of, we have a writing. Now, your employment laws, guys, if you have employees, guess what? You're going to have to comply with those laws. Wage and hour, guess what? You've got to pay people for overtime. You've got to pay people for certain things. Can't discriminate. It seems silly to say out loud, but you've got to be mindful of this. You can't discriminate. You don't judge books by covers. You can judge them by work ethic and how they show up and everything else, but you do not discriminate. You just don't. Workplace safety regs, guys. Y'all seen all the memes about, right in front of my OSHA handbook when somebody's doing something crazy like, balancing on a step ladder with a board on it to weld something on a fuel tank. You're like, yeah, that's a disaster. But I do want y'all to know that your workplace safety, and if you're a food industry, or, I bet you, going back to it, IKEA's probably got folks who come and look at her apartments. They come and look at everything that they're dealing with. Going back on up to our previous points here, if you're in the hair business, guess what? You're going to have a state agency come in and say, hey, is your hair care facility good? Does it work? Are you treating people well? That is a great thing to make certain that it's all okay. So if you're Dawn, or if you're anybody else, you may have a government entity that keeps its nose in your business to make everything better. Because, Dawn said she was in health and beauty. Akia said, hey, guess what? I'm in property management. They may have different entities that come to them to pay attention. Food prep, you absolutely will have that. We've got DHEC down here in South Khaki. You're going to have a variation of that elsewhere. They want to make certain that if you're prepping food, that you're doing it the right way. Nobody's getting bad food or nobody's getting sick or anything like that. Now, on to our next slide. I'm sorry, y'all. My cufflink is banging the cup. I apologize for the metal noises. Now, our key legal steps. What are our taxes? So funny, our receptionist out here in the front, her daughter just started her first job. Got out of high school, went straight in it, didn't think college was her, so she's working. So she called her mom and said, hey, have you paid my taxes? And her mom's like, guess what, Miss Young Adult? You've got to pay your taxes. I can't do that for you. It's got to be your tax return. So I want you guys to know, federal, state, local, income taxes, sales tax, payroll tax. You're going to want to make certain that you've discussed with an attorney. Now, granted, I can tell you these are out there, guys. You call me about property tax, you're going to jail. And that's one of those areas where I'm going to be like, I'm so sorry, I can't help you, but I'll find somebody who can. If I don't know the answer, that's what you want from your attorney too, if you've got one, is to say, hey, can you or can't you do this? And if the answer is like, nope, can't do it, they'll find somebody. Now, if the answer is I can do all things for all people, you need to walk slowly back into the elevator, get in your car, and just head off and make certain they don't know where you live. Open a business account. I do want a business bank account. You guys are like, I've got a bank account. I've got a debit card. What do I need this for? It's part of your LLC. It's part of separating things. It's also part of just good bookkeeping. Keep it on there. Like my wife makes me. As y'all can tell, I'm real shy and I don't talk much. So I take people to lunch a lot. I will pull out ye old credit card and I'll make certain not to show you all the digits so I don't get anybody in trouble. But the wife's like, use your Discover card. And this isn't a Discover commercial. She was just like, use your Discover because that's not the card we use for all the house stuff. And it makes sense. Do the same thing with your bank account. Have a separate account set up for your company under the name of the company. You can be the signatory, but you're signing as president or chief operating officer or whatever you are. But we want a separate bank account. It's going to make your taxes easier. You're going to be able to look at that one account and be like, all right, here's all my expenses. It's all right here. Builds trust. Do you want to send a check to a business, writing it out there as, I want to zip back to one of our former names here. Do you want to send a check to a business that goes to johnsmith.com? No. You want to send it to something that says, hey, this is going to Morning Service Company Incorporated. Something like that says, hey, this is a legitimate business. It's got a legitimate business interest. There's a lot going on here. These guys seem professional. Because we're just like, send it to Doug Lineberry, care of, hey, Doug likes comic books. Not so professional. Doesn't come across that way. Also, protect your data. Guys, in this day and age, I cannot drive this point home enough. You've got to be really, really careful. If you guys going back to it, Dawn, if you collect information on your people, you don't want somebody getting your customer stuff. Same for you, Akia. If you've got notes on the potential customers who are there, notes on your tenants and stuff, you need to keep that stuff safe. You don't need somebody being able to get into it. You don't want a situation to where somebody gains access to that info and harms your business by disseminating it. We want to avoid that, full stop. So again, make certain that we're complying with these protections. Make certain that you've got steps in pride. So guys, we're right at 10:53, so we've got a little more than an hour left, but I'm going to stop real quick and see if there are other questions based on what we talked about. And I'll sit here and hang just for a second. And guys, there's no bad question. If I don't know the answer, I will tell you I don't know the answer. But I'll give y'all a second to see if anybody has a question or anything they're curious about.
Doug, this is Michelle. While we're waiting, to see if they have any questions at this point, boy, Doug, you have really given me a lot to think about, and I'm not even a business, but because I talk
sorry,
to
Michelle. I don't mean to cause heartburn, but I need to take care of you. Y'all are now the children of the SBDC, and we need to take care of you. And Michelle, if I gave you any heartburn, I am so sorry. But
no, you have not. You have relieved heartburn because I am always in the public eye speaking to businesses, and they ask different type of questions. No, I am not a subject matter expert on this like you are, but I tell you, the way that you've broken it down has made it layman's terms easy to kind of think about these things that people don't really know is that important.
Yeah.
You know, like the whole thing we talking about, the whole trademarks, right? And the difference, I'm gonna tell you what I didn't know. I didn't know about the forbiddens, okay? The S Corp, C Corp, LLCs is better than the other partnerships. So I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, right? So yeah, that's just my little 2 cents, but I'm gonna tell you, I am so appreciative. So you just know you better be coming back a whole lot. I'm just telling you that right now.
No, I'm glad, Michelle. Thank you for the kind words. But y'all understand that's why me, Michelle, and Shanae, and Charles, and Marlo are all here. We want you guys to understand, hey, what are these issues? How do I protect my business? At the end of the day, we're here to help you guys stay out of the wolves' den. We had a couple questions. Shanae, thank you for putting my info in there. Y'all, that's my direct email. I'll put in my direct phone call if you guys are call people. Love to talk to. That is my phone number. Comes right to me. I've got voicemail if I'm not here. But let's go back. We do have a couple questions. Polito says, hey, can we receive the recording? I'd assume it'll be posted. Michelle, are we going to post a recording?
Yeah, so that
See?
part will be posted, and we
Perfect.
also, send out information where they'll be able to find it to those who are in attendance today. So that's
Absolutely.
not a problem. But you do have this other question, which I'm like, how would you, I guess it's an industry question when it says,
Yeah,
what's
no,
a good
Reginald.
hourly
It's a
rate?
it's a great question, Reginald.
I'm
And y'all
like,
don't be
oh,
afraid. You're not embarrassing me. I'm too old to be embarrassed. My twins are killing me. But that is an awesome question, Reginald. And it will depend on market base. Like if you're in New York and you go to a New York attorney, guess what? They're going to be hitting you for some money. I'm a good old South Carolina attorney. We have a lower economic level. One thing I'll tell y'all though, and it's something I want everybody to take away from, and we will do a presentation on this later in the year. We're going to talk about haggling. And I mean haggle with everybody, your vendors, your attorneys, your accountant, everybody, your nurse, your doctor, haggle. Because if you meet an attorney and they say it's this, well, ask them. It's like, hey, can I get a flat fee on this? If the documents, and again, Reginald, too, it depends on the quantity of work. Like if you bring them in a contract and it's 100 pages long, that's going to cost more to review than a 20 pager. It'll cost more to review than a 30 pager. So you want to go in that eyes wide open. And I mean this for all things, y'all. Ask about pricing. I know there's this sort of thing where everybody's kind of like, do I ask? I love the fact you're all asking. Ask your attorney, ask your accountant, ask anybody you deal with, what's my pricing? What am I looking at? Or, is there a professional fee? Like I've got a lawyer's fee. I told y'all also there's a trademark filing fee of $350. I'll tell you that. If you guys talk to me, I've got an email, I send it out, we're on the same page, and nobody gets heartburn. But I want y'all to do the same thing and do that with your clients. Tell them that pricing. Tell them up front, get it in writing. Because when it's in writing, it's concrete. Doesn't matter if you had ice cream for lunch and got brain freeze and can't remember your name, you'll still have that in writing. I want y'all to be protected. Um, Reginald's in Maryland. Yep, Maryland, again, of a Northeast state, you're not looking at like a New York or an Illinois type fee. And it also depends on if you're urban or rural too, Reginald. If you're out a little bit, like I grew up on a farm in Virginia. So if you hear me using all these weird anecdotes, and I am wearing cowboy boots. So understand that where you're at does base your costs. It will determine how much you pay for something. If you're downtown on Park Avenue in New York, trust you me, you're paying thousands an hour for a rate. My rate, because I'm getting old, my twins are killing me. I'm in the mid fives, but I do break down flat fees. I do small business rates because I know that you guys, the last thing you want is an attorney making it so you don't get something done. That right there is something that you always want. I love that, Reginald. Put haggle. Absolutely haggle. Go talk to people. Get out there. Do not be afraid that, hey, this is my attorney and I'm going to ask for something. You're not asking for something free. You're just trying to figure out, hey, is there a benefit here? Can I get a cost? I don't know if I was trying to think of a TV show, and I've seen a really good episode. There was a little kid who asked for something, and he got it. And his little friend had already, oh, sorry, they were trick or treating. And the kid came up and said, hey, trick or treat. And they give him a piece of candy, and the first kid walks away. Second kid comes up and goes, hey, would you happen to have any full-size candy bars? Kid, the mom throws in this huge freaking Hershey's bar. And the other little kid's like, whoa, can I get one of those? The mom's like, nope, you gotta ask. And I think it was a bank commercial or something, but it was awesome. It was so good. But I want y'all to think that same way. Don't be afraid to ask. Worst thing say is no. Worst thing say, I know this is the price, or I've already given you a discount, because I do build a small business discount into all of my small business pricing. But I'll be happy to tell you that, because you'll know, hey, I wasn't paying full freight. This guy just cut to the quick and said, hey, here's the cost. Now, Shannon Hart has a question. Is errors and omissions, E&O, insurance separate from business insurance? I don't have a brick and mortar. That is a great question. So, like, as an attorney, business insurance, errors and omissions, we've got malpractice insurance. If I go off the chain this afternoon and start screwing up some trademarks, we will have an ability to handle that. We will have coverage that will cover it. Is it going to be different than your business insurance? You want to make certain that it's included in that policy, Shannon. This is where you talk to your insurance agent. Is it a standalone policy depending on where you're at, or is it just included in your overall insurance? So you want to have a conversation with them. Another aspect of it too, guys, and this is a great thing about insurance, it is very malleable. I told you earlier, Charles is a friend of Lego blocks. Insurance is a lot like that. You can take block A and block B and block C and make a unique creation. You can take block X and L and Q and make a different creation. So you've got a lot of freedom with insurance. I do want you guys to have that discussion. It's not one size fits all. You can haggle with your insurance agent, believe it or not, saying, hey, what about this coverage? What about that coverage? Maybe I don't need this coverage. Why do I need this coverage? Go over it with them. Charles just threw in here too, a link for the DC Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking. Guess what? Insurance for different types of small businesses. Look at that, guys. That is going to be an awesome link, because, well, again, that's one of our safeties. We want that LLC and we want that insurance. We don't want a situation to where we're just kind of out in the wind wishing that we had done something. When I work with clients on patents, I tell them to be very, very wordy. I want everything thrown in this patent that they can do. And I work with engineers a lot. Man, engineers are terse. They don't like using a lot of language. Man, I'm an attorney. Plus, I'm a Gabby attorney. For a patent attorney, I'm kind of weird because I'm all chatty Cathy. But when I tell my engineers I want everything you can say, I'll give back 2 sentences. I'm like, no. I need all the sentences. I need to know what's going on. And I want y'all to be the same way. I want you guys to be like, hey, when we're dealing with an attorney, you tell them everything. When you're dealing with your insurance agent, you tell them everything. Let them know what you're doing. Tell them what you're doing. Don't be afraid to be like, oh, I don't want to waste your time. It's not wasting time. It's figuring out mapping your business. It's making certain that you're protected. Make certain that you're asking these things of counsel, of an accountant, of your tax person, of your insurance person. Hey, what can I get? What should I do? Guess what? If you're a fireworks company, guys, you're going to have an insurance policy that's going to be like a telephone book thick. If you have just like a property management company, it's going to be thick, but it's not going to be telephone book thick. So just understand it does depend on the area. And back to Reginald's sort of short answer to a long warbling session, Reginald, depends on where you're at. Urban rural is going to be a difference. It depends on what you're asking them to do. Will depend on the quantity of the work. But again, don't be afraid to haggle. Don't be afraid to price. I'm telling y'all now, price around. You price your vendors, you price your attorney, you price your accountant. You go and talk to different people. Go with somebody that you get a good feeling on. That leads right to this slide. LegalZoom, Legal Shield, Rocket Lawyer, whatever they call themselves this week, you don't really get a personalized person. You get sort of a machine, or you'll get a human being in place of a machine. I got to be really careful that there's no attorney-client relationship. A lot of these places don't want one, because that does cause some issues. It causes some obligations on their part that they don't want. I love an attorney-client relationship, because guess what? We're attorney-clients. And whatever we say, like today on the screen, not so much, but let's say that Danielle calls me up and she starts telling me about her business, or Akia calls me up, or Marcia calls me up, or Monique calls me up, or Heather calls me up, and we start talking about the business. Guess what? We're protected. That's an attorney and a client jawing about secret stuff. Nobody gets in there. And everybody's like, how's that happen? The attorneys wrote the rules. So we wanted to make certain that we are the most protected ever. And so I want y'all to understand, when you're dealing with these companies, if you don't have an attorney-client relationship, your communications are not private. There's no ongoing support. A real fun game these jokers will play will be, you'll file something. If they don't get like an allowance back, they'll send it back to you going, well, we got an office action. You'll have to figure it out. And so unless you're a practicing trademark attorney, that comes across as a little weird, because you thought, oh, wow, I thought these guys were going to help. What's this mean at 2D? What's this mean descriptive? What's this mean generic? What's this mean likelihood of confusion? There are a lot of words there that are going to be thrown back at you quickly, and you're going to be going through Black's Legal Dictionary trying to figure them out. Don't do that. Plus, guess what? If you got an attorney, it's pretty easy in this day and age to get in contact with them. I love the Zoom. I love the video call. It makes it so easy just to see somebody and get reactions from them. That's what you want. Your potential for inadequate or inaccurate documents. Guys, I don't know how many times I've seen LegalZoom or Legal Shield or Rocket Lawyer, one of those ilk, file a trademark that doesn't cover the client. I know that sounds silly. You're like, hey, I do this business. Here we are. I've seen them file things that are they just don't fit. They're not good for the client, but you're stuck with it because you can't amend them after you file these guys. And again, I will dissuade you from filing your own trademarks. If you don't do trademark law, if you don't surf, don't start was the old saying. I'll tell you that now. If you don't trademark, don't try to do your own, not starting out of the gate. Because if you goof it up, you don't get a refund. If you goof it up, you can't amend your application. It is locked in stone when you file it. Hidden fees and upselling, these places will tell you get a trademark for $1. You get a trademark for $0.25. You'll get a trademark for 50 cents. Problem is, they're going to want you on a monthly subscription plan. There's going to be all these hidden fees and costs. And by the time you're done with them, you could have paid me or one of my brothers or sisters to do it. And you're going to get the ultimate benefit here, guys, docketing. I'm going to play a little game, and everybody has to play. I want to know, what is the world's oldest trademark? Nobody cheat, just guess. What is the world's oldest trademark? Y'all start telling me the answers, and I'll tell you why that's important for this slide. What is the world's oldest trademark? Go now. And Reginald and Shanna and Polito and those guys, I know y'all's fingers work. So Kia, everybody, guess. What is the world's oldest trademark? Reginald wrote back, no idea. That's fine. Y'all give me some guesses. I've got another. Cheryl Jeter says, no clue. I love it. Here we go. Dawn says the Army. Michelle says Coca-Cola. What are some others, guys? These are good guesses. Coca-Cola is kind of in the right area, Michelle. I'll give y'all that hint. It is a drink. Disney. Oh, I hear you, Marlo. I hear you. RC Cola. I hear you, Cheryl. Not that one. Shannon is an honest engine. She knows the answer. Thank you, Shannon, for not spoiling that. Reginald, great answer with Pepsi. It's old too. Shannon, oh, you a gold star, dear. I've had people play that game before, and they were like, I know what it is. Deborah Jones says probably some word to describe a product. It is a product. It doesn't really describe what it is, but it's there. But guys, I will pop this in here. This is a Jeopardy winner for you guys. Shannon's already used it to make a lot of money. She's putting her kids through college based on this answer. I want y'all to know, though, that it is this trademark right here. And how would you like to be the trademark attorneys for these guys? Your one job is to keep a trademark alive that has been going for nearly 700 years. This is a long time. This is a time to where if you goof up that filing, they're going to nail you to a wall someplace. It's Stella Artois beer. Pilsner, now granted, I loved your guess on that one, Deborah, about how it describes something. Pilsner's also argued to be that old, but they've got Stella Artois barrels that have the trademark burned into them that are freaking older than the U.S. It is amazing. Reginald, I'm with you on that. And so here's back to our slide. You got to keep them alive, because guess what? For trademarks, it's not just you file it and you're done. You file it and you're done for a little bit, because at the end of the 5th year after it's been registered, you've got to renew the mark. And at the 10th year, you've got to renew the mark. And then every decade thereafter, you got to renew the mark. So you may be getting into a relationship with an attorney who's going to hit you with an email every decade going, hey guys, are we using this mark? Hey guys, time to renew the mark. Because trust me, the Stella Artois attorney, he's sending those things out like every hour. He or she's making certain that there's no ability for them to be pinned to a wall. And so I want y'all to understand that it's not just you file them and you forget them. It's all got to be upkept. It's all got to be registered. Trademarks are a living creature, with Stella Artois currently being the oldest creature at nearly 700 years old. And so that's a problem with this limited customer sports. Do you think that these guys are going to ping you in 5 years and say your mark's due? Are they going to ping you in 10 years and say, hey, your mark's due again? Are they going to ping you in another decade and say, hey, your mark is due? They're not. And so I want y'all to be very careful if you ever consider using these services, guys. I know at the outset it seems cheaper, but you get what you pay for. Now, I love this. LegalZoom did the best thing ever. This is how I just, you're too clever by half, saying too much at the same time. Notice they're going to give you an LLC for $0, folks. $0 can't be zero. Zero is free. You're doing business as your DBA, which I told y'all before to avoid like the plagues of Egypt. They'll give you that one for $100. So the thing that I tell you to use that, if you don't have it, you're going to get in trouble. That's zero. But the thing that'll get you in trouble will cost you $100. Isn't that a deal? I mean, doesn't that just work? And so, guys, I don't want y'all to fall for this because you've got to understand they show you all these checks, and this is great. You're not getting an LLC for zero. I'm sorry. You're just not. The fee's going to start up. You're going to have to enter a subscription. It's going to get cray. Notice, too, that they said, hey, they put the DBA in the center. Y'all know that humans have a nasty tendency to focus on what's in the center for $99 and your state filing fees. Notice that's in there, too, your state filing fees. You can set up a DBA, which is absolutely useless if somebody sues you personally. So I want y'all to be extremely wary of these guys. And I pulled this. This is not that old of an advertisement for them. And so I want y'all to just be aware that when you're using these crews, your best interest is not what they're for. Your money is what they're for. That's what they want it from. But I need y'all to be aware this is not the way to sell the ship. Now, guess what? We're getting ready to start into the AI session. And y'all, I know everybody on here has used AI. I use AI. We've got a firm system that we can use. And if I want to have like a presentation worked up, or if I'm thinking about, hey, I've written this article, help me make it a little more directed toward like the life sciences industry, I'll ask it to do that. And so you can use ChatGPT or AIs for a lot of stuff. You really can. But what I want y'all to be very wary, very, very wary of is that it's kind of like a toddler with a chocolate bar. It is kind of like turning somebody loose whose job is to tell you answers. And the best way I've heard it, Charles will appreciate this. We were down at a training thing a while back down in Florida, and I heard AI called a confident liar. And that is the best way to describe these things. You guys have all seen the examples where they'll get an AI and it'll tell you the sky's red, the sky's red, the sky's red. And then you'll send it a picture and say, hey, this is the sky's blue. And the AI will be like, you're right, the sky's blue. So be very careful when using that. Your setup, your maintenance, your training, your updates. If you are using your own, make certain that you've got a maintenance program for it. These aren't just like a hammer that you can put back in the toolbox when you're done. You've got to make certain that the program's up to date, that it's being given software updates, security updates to make certain everything's okay. Using the free chat GPTs, guess what? When you're using those, they're training modules. And what they do is they train it how to answer questions better, and they use your information to do it. So notice I didn't say my information. I didn't say somebody else's information. I said they're going to use Alicia's or Salima's or Shalanda's info. They're going to use Akia's info. They'll use Anthony's. They'll use Marcia's. They're going to use that info. They're not going to use blank info. They're not going to have strawman info. They're going to have Harvey's info or Candace's or Dawn's or Tina's, that info. I don't want you guys giving them to us. Guess what? You comply with GDPR or CCPA. Those acronyms usually stymie most folks. And I'm not even going to explain them to you because that is something that we want to be very careful about is that do we know what we're doing here? Does my use of AI comply with these onerous sounding regulatory schemes? AI biases. Depending on the AI bias, the AI you use, it may be biased. And you're like, what do you mean biased? It's like it can be definitely biased. If you tell a AI, if you program it that the best flavor of ice cream is chocolate, chocolate is just the best ice cream ever. And I love chocolate. So yeah, I'm inflicting my own bias into it. But if you're like the best flavor of ice cream is always chocolate, always. And if someone asks you, hey, what is a good flavor of ice cream? The AI is going to say chocolate. And if the person says, well, tell me some other flavors. Well, let's say this person really hates, let's go with something. They hate mint chocolate chip. They just hate it. Got sick on it as a kid and they've never liked it since. If that engineer programming it says, well, chocolate's the best ice cream. And if somebody ever asks for ice cream, don't ever recommend chocolate chip or mint chocolate chip. Just don't do it. Just don't recommend it. That engineer controls your ability to get an answer. Because you'll ask, hey, what are some good types of ice cream? It'll never come up because the person directing the machine to answer has inflicted a bias, has said, nope, said, I don't like mint chocolate chip and you're not going to get it. And that do not like applies to politics. It applies to information. It applies to discussions about countries, about products, etc. You've got to be really careful that you want to know, hey, are there biases in this thing? Is there some sort of unseen rules that are behind the scenes that make my life more difficult because I'm not getting the full picture? If I ask what's the most popular, what are the 5 most popular ice creams in America, and the engineer said, don't you tell them mint chocolate chip. If that's number 4, it's going to put something else in there. It will cut out number 4. The machine's not going to all of a sudden get a conscience and be like, oh my gosh, guys, that I should really tell you about mint chocolate chip. Won't do it. Now, I played with this recently, and we'll do another one here soon, because the more you monkey with these things, the more you get great, crazy results from them. So I went to Copilot and said, hey, I want a picture of Mona Lisa riding a bronco. That's all I put in. Draw a picture of the Mona Lisa riding a bucking bronco. Now, you guys can see this picture, and it looks like some sort of psychedelic desert road trip. And somehow there's a two-tailed grouse at the top of it. I have no idea where this came from, but this is what AI does. And if you guys have ever used it, like I've had situations to where I will be like, hey, design this. And I've used it to try to translate drawings before. And sometimes it nails it. Sometimes it's great. And other times you're like, that is weird, because I just sent you a stick figure drawing and I got back something with all this input I didn't ask for. And notice here, I didn't even give drawing. I just said, hey, draw a picture of the Mona Lisa riding a bucking bronco. Now let's start to dissect this. I didn't say I want a carousel horse, because that's absolutely what a carousel horse looks like. I've never seen the Mona Lisa wearing some sort of psychedelic flower dish, nor was she somebody carrying a riding crop. Don't ever remember seeing that. But notice how AI takes this context and infuses it and runs it through the whole thing. You've got this huge supermoon back there. You've got the carousel horse rather than a bucking bronco. You've got the Mona Lisa, and it kind of looks like she has a mustache too. I don't know where that came from. Maybe it's a Three Musketeers influence or something. But there's a lot going on in this picture that we didn't ask for. There's a lot going on in this picture that we didn't control. And we don't even know what the biases are, because it's not like it plopped up and said, hey, I hate Palomino horses and I'm not putting a Palomino in here. We just get this horse that looks psychedelic. So I want y'all to understand, picture's worth a million, trillion, billion words in this case. We've seen what it'll do with a very simple prompt. And y'all, I didn't give it any other prompts. I didn't say anything else. I said, draw me a picture of the Mona Lisa riding a bucking bronco, and I got this picture. Now here comes sort of the horror parts of it. Michelle hates these parts because it makes her like, oh crud. What if this picture of the Mona Lisa is from somebody else? Somebody else owned it. There's an artist out in Nebraska and they've redrawn the Mona Lisa this way. What if this is a very famous carousel horse on a carousel in New York? And guess what? They copyrighted the designs on those horses. We don't know that. The AI did not tell us that. M360 just said, hey, here you go. You said Mona Lisa riding a bucking bronco. Here you are, Slick. So I need y'all to be very wary of using these AI sources. If you're using them to create things for your companies, I want you to be extremely wary, because you're not just going to put it on your website and pray for the best. You're going to have to do a little checking. And you're going to want to ask this thing, hey, where did that picture of the Mona Lisa come from? Hey, where did that picture of the bucking bronco come from? Hey, where did that landscape in the back come from? You're going to want to know, did it create these things, or how did that happen? Now, here's the explanation I got from the AI. And it said it's a surreal and imaginative artwork of the Mona Lisa riding a bucking bronco in a Wild West setting. We didn't say crap about the Wild West. We did say bucking bronco. The Mona Lisa is wearing a Renaissance-style dress with a cowboy hat. We didn't say anything about dressing up the Mona Lisa, holding on the reins with one hand and waving the other in the air. If you think on it, that's actually incorrect, because she's not waving the other one in the air. She's holding a riding crop to switch the horse to make it go faster. So notice, it's not really telling you exactly what it did either, and that's why it's a confident liar. The Bronco's mid-buck. I'm sorry, y'all, trying to get back to the picture. That is not mid-buck. That is a carousel horse. Trust me, y'all, I grew up on a farm. I know what a bucking horse looks like. That is not it. The scene's dynamic and full of motion, blending classical art with Western cowboy themes. So understand, when we turn those little critters loose, they are going to do their own thing. So I went a little dumber and I said, hey, tell me or show me President Trump wrestling with Elon Musk. I want to see it. And I put the meatloaf quote up there because it was too funny. The thing will show the Mona Lisa on a bucking bronco, but it says, I can't create images involving real public figures like Donald Trump and Elon Musk in a fictional or potentially controversial scenario such as wrestling. Bias. It won't do it. It says, hey, I've been instructed by the humans who programmed me that I cannot put pictures of these two in there. Just no, 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 they're not going to do it. Then it says, however, I can help create a fun fictional version using parody characters or a similar concept of original characters. What would you like me to do? And so you can sit here and give it more prompts and figure this out. But understand, guys, these are these biases. It's not saying it, hey, it's impossible to draw that. It's saying I will not draw it. I've been told indeed not to do that. And it says I can't. It doesn't mean like I'm unable to do so, that, no computer wherever can do that. It just means I've been told I can't do this. I have been programmed with a bias against this. So I want y'all to be very careful using these AIs, guys, because even though they're great, even though they're a great cost benefit, even though they do some fantastic things fast, I want y'all to be very, very wary of it. Hey, if you're using these AI, I want you to have a policy in place. I want it so that if you're saying, hey, Sheila or John or whomever's working on the thing in the business, do we know what this AI is doing? What's it saying about data privacy? You can turn off the training module on some of them, but you want to make certain that it stays off. You want to make certain that if you're using this crazy thing, that you're not doing something that's going to get you in trouble, that you're not doing something that's going to release data for a client out into the ethersphere. We don't want that whatsoever, guys. We just don't. What's this data? What's it going to collect? If I'm sitting there typing it in and all of a sudden I start perusing Amazon for, I don't know, something to help me organize my new office, does it take that data too? Is it looking at my websites as I go? Where does the data actually end up? Where does it go? Where does it reside when we're done? Probably going to be a server for the company providing that particular AI. Now, here's another one. What are my state's data privacy laws? What are my consumer protections? If you have a business to where you've got client data in there, what's that requirement? If you have a big business and you've got a situation to where you've got non-US citizens, Europe has very stringent data privacies. You want to make certain that if you're overseas, if you're using a business outside the US, that you want to make certain that you know what those obligations are. You need to make certain that we're not doing something that's going to get us in trouble. Guess what? Can this AI go other places? Can it watch what I surf while I'm using it? Can it go into my docs folder? You want to make certain that, hey, what's this thing do? Is it just limited to where it's at? Does it prowl my system? You might not want it to go anywhere. You might just want to be a captive AI that you got the ability to talk about. You might just want selected users to be able to use it. I think that's great. Limit somebody in your company. They're the AI person. That way they know the policy. They know what's going on. And again, y'all, just like we said before, the easiest way to protect a trade secret is a big old sign. That's it. We're not going to tell it to AI. We're not going to tell it to competitors. We're not going to do a TikTok video showing it off. We're not going to do a white paper presented at the University of Maryland. We're not going to do it. So we want to keep that and our proprietary information out of AI's hands. If you feel the need to ask a question, you're going to strawman it. And you're not going to use your company's data. You're not going to use it. You're like, well, why, Doug? I said, if I make it very specific and I tell it all these great details, it'll give me some just awesome response. Well, the problem is it will take all that awesome data that you gave it and send it back to the server someplace. And if your competitor is now searching your name, say you're Pilsner, and you're wanting to figure out what Stella Artois is going to do for beers in 26. And if they were silly enough to use an AI and tell it all these different beer recipes they've got, and it ships it back off to the central server, well, guess what? Now maybe Pilsner can find that. And they can say, hey, upcoming Stella Artois products. Bam, because somebody put it in the AI. And y'all, this is not just a specious example. This is something I want y'all to be very cognizant of. These things are very good at gathering data. These little smartphones that we all carry around everywhere, every day, they're little bitty recorders, they're little bitty movie production facilities, and they're paying attention to you. They're listening to you. They look at what you look at. They listen to what you talk about. So AI is just that on steroids. I want y'all to be very careful. What could go wrong? I won't turn an AI loose in my system. Heck, they're super efficient. Why should I care? Could create models based on your business info. You may have explained something about how you do a business or how you make a product or what you do to increase efficiency, asking the AI to help. Well, the AI may take that input and then ship it off someplace. And then your competitors are now exposed to how you make things happen. Relying on AI generated documents, guys, don't you do it. Of all the 27 people still on here today, I do not want anybody to ever use an AI doc that has not had a human's eyes on it, that has had a red pen taken across it. You do not print that thing and go sign it. You just don't do it. I need you guys to understand that this could cause copyright issues. If they've taken text from somebody else or an illustration or a design from somebody else, that can come back to haunt you. Now, we talked about the biases. Remember chocolate chip ice cream or mint chocolate chip? Great ice cream, but if it's been told it can't tell you about it, it won't. So you need to make certain you know what the biases are. How's the security for this AI? Maybe it tells you, hey, this isn't going anywhere else, but if they are constantly hacked and the data is not secure, what's it matter? So I want y'all to be very careful of this. And as a small business, you guys are going to be tempted to use AI for efficiency. You're going to be tempted to use AI to make things faster. And that's okay if you use it the appropriate way. Now, granted, is it going to generate your docs for you? It is not. You're going to want to read those. You can use it for a first draft. That's okay. But you don't want that to be the final draft. You absolutely never want it to be the, here is the draft we're sending out the door and I didn't read it draft that you've already signed. Again, that security vetting makes certain that when you're talking about this company, that it is legitimate. Issues and liabilities from using AI. Accuracy and quality control. The little suckers can hallucinate. I don't know if y'all been keeping up with it in the news, but there's an issue now that AI are starting to encounter other AI generated materials. And it's kind of like feeding on garbage to give you back answers. You've got to be really careful. Now, hallucinations are something you can do by providing input to the AI to elicit a response. An example that I've used and Shannon's probably heard before is we start telling AI, like all of us on this today, the 26 that are still here, the 30 that began with us, we go out and start typing in that polar bears are vegan. Polar bears love lettuce. We start doing articles about it. We start using AIs to create scientific things about, hey, a polar bear is the biggest vegan on the planet, biggest vegetarian mammal to ever exist. You start putting this stuff out there, guys, and once it hits a certain threshold, there unfortunately is the inclination of an AI to be like, well, this must be true. Hasn't an AI ever stepped outside and seen a polar bear? It has not. Even though it can go look at videos of it, we were generating videos of polar bears farming lettuce, polar bears eating cabbage. And it'll see these videos too. And it doesn't have any sort of context, So all of a sudden, now we're starting to be fed information that, hey, polar bears eat lettuce. Did you know? And that comes from the AI. That also ties right back into our lack of legal judgment context. They don't have common sense. They don't have a soul. They don't know right and wrong. It is a toddler with a chocolate bar. It is a confident liar that you've asked to give me an answer. And you will tell it, I want the right answer. I want the answer. I want all the answers. That AI is going to tell you the answer. When we zip back to our Mona Lisa and looked at it, it interjected a lot of things that I didn't tell it to add. And then when it gives you the explanation, its explanation's wrong. So you got to be really careful. And these are still things you see, like, my recent forays with AI recently, I've asked them to do things for me and it just comes out wrong sometimes. And it's never a situation where like, oh, this is perfect. You've got to review it. You've got to make certain it's okay. Ethical guys, they don't have an ethics system. They don't know right from wrong. They don't have a soul. They don't get what's plus or minus. They'll take that info and just throw it out there. They don't understand what's important to a business or what shouldn't be said. Regulatory compliance, guess what? If you try to use an AI to complete your LLC filings from Maryland or Delaware or South Carolina or Florida or Georgia, wherever you're at, that's going to be a big problem because they don't understand how to comply. And there might be an answer it gives that seems right to the machine that will be absolutely not right for the regulatory commission. So I want y'all to be very aware of that. Reliability and maintenance. Best example is, you guys think of a website that you used to use 15 years ago. Just think on one. And you're like, all right. So I went back and checked some the other day. Back when I was a baby attorney, I would check a gossip site called What Would Tyler Durden Do? Like the movie Fight Club. And that thing is no longer gone. And when I clicked on it the other night, just to see if it's still alive, it flagged every potential virus thing I own. And so this used to be a site, guys, that I would go to every day. I would check it. I would read it. You giggle at some of it. There you go. It's dead. Same for these AIs. If they are not maintained, if they are not reliably serviced, if they are not kept in top fighting condition, they're going to be useless to you. So I don't want you guys getting in this trouble. I don't want you using an old rusty hammer when you should have been using a brand new one that just been old, put back in the toolbox. Now, why even care about it? Well, you're a business, guys. Everybody here is a business. you want to make certain, in the words of our old Rutro Raggy, Scooby-Doo, that awesome detective we've all seen before, guess what? If this AI is going to create materials, whether it be text, images, or audio, it might create copyright infringement issues for you. Let's say you're building a new website for a roofing company, and you're like, you know what? I want a new logo, and then I want a theme song to that logo that'll play every time somebody clicks on my website. Nothing loud and crazy, just a real cool little theme song, maybe a song about a roof or something. And so you do it, and it creates an image for you, and then it creates a song for it, and it populates that. And then lo and behold, you press the publish button, and that's out there in the universe. Unknown to us, it went and lifted a song off of a famous musician talking about a little red roof. And the image it used to create your trademark came from somebody else. And you told it, hey, I want an introduction to my company. It went to a different roofing company, took their language, put your name in it, said, here you go, friend, I have drafted it for you. Poorly crafted documents. You do not want AI to be turned loose on something. Like, we were talking earlier about our choice of laws. Anthony was like, hey, I don't want to be in a foreign venue. I don't want to be somewhere outside where the work's at. This jurisdictional mismatch happens. Understand, too, the AI roams the Ethernet looking for the most common example. Meaning, if you say, hey, provide me a breach of contract clause for failing to complete construction, do you think it's going to ask you, hey, are you in Maryland? Hey, are you in South Carolina? It's just going to go look. Lo and behold, most of these examples are going to be from New York and California because they create a lot of case law. They create a lot of contracts. It's going to be out there and easily found by the AI. But if you're in Maryland or South Carolina or Arkansas or Illinois even, those aren't going to work for you. They're not going to be a perfect fit. The Cinderella shoe will cause a blister. Also, it might not be enforceable. We talked about restrictive covenants in South Carolina. They're very enforceable. Georgia, North Carolina, you can absolutely use those. They're verboten in California. Cannot put one in there. Don't think about it. Don't try. Could endanger the whole contract. An AI doesn't know that, guys. They just don't. And so instead of trying to thread that needle and hope that it gets it right, the obligation's on us to make certain that we don't get it wrong. Now, South Carolina, my old home state, this statute's 2 years old, guys. So we were thinking of this right on the cusp of it. We had a situation to where some realtors went out. One of them went out and said, hey, create me a website. And this daggone AI brought in everything. I think it was a triple whammy. They used somebody else's logo. They used a picture from another website. And down here in South Carolina and probably other real estate markets too, the people who take pictures of houses are a specialized niche of photographers. And guess what? They recognize their style. They recognize their photos. This one was recognized because it was taken off somebody else's site. And it also lifted language from another site. And of course, the realtor was like, whoa, 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 I'm not in trouble. I'm not in trouble. I didn't tell the AI to do that. Sure, I pushed the publish button, but I didn't make it do that. It did it on its own. South Carolina said, well, tough luck, Bubby. What this means is you're going to be treated as if you did it yourself. And y'all, that's critical because if you are a company and you're using an AI and it goes out and does something silly, this is not a forgivable offense. And I'm certain there are other states that have statutes just like this. But this is for South Carolina stating, hey, and y'all, we're slow to adopt new stuff. And this is 2 years old. So understand that this has been out there for a bit. And it's out there in the extent of if you tell the machine to do it, you're going to be the person getting the haircut. So let's just make certain that we don't do anything crazy with that. Now, our AI guidelines, this is something I want y'all to be extremely cognizant of. I want y'all to understand that these guidelines are something that are just written in stone. We don't want any of these to be violated. We're not going to use AI to generate legal documents. A first draft only. If you create something, you're going to review everything by detail. If it's a legal document, you take it to an attorney in the jurisdiction you want it used in. If you're going to use a license, unless you have a license for it and it brings you something back, guys, be hesitant. Ask it where it came from. Who is this? Read the terms and conditions with that AI because if it generates something for you, we don't want a situation to where you guys get in trouble. We don't want a situation to where, hey, guess what? South Khaki says if you told it to publish it, it's as if you did it yourself. The AI is not in trouble. The AI doesn't get yelled at. The AI does not have to pay the settlement from a lawsuit. You want to make certain that if you don't have a license for it or a permission to use it, that you're not using it. And again, we never let AI have any access to trade secrets, guys. I don't care how super secret they swear they are. I don't care how protected they claim they are. Ever, never, never, ever, ever, never We just don't let them do it. If we do something like that, guys, it's going to come back to haunt us. I don't want that happening to y'all. Now, y'all, our resources here, and these will be a little different for you guys. Now, notice we are using the SBDC right now. They're here to help you guys. The Transit Authority is here to help you guys as well. There are other organizations out there. You know, we've got SCORE, the Organization of Retired Executives, the Small Business Association. They're out there as well. Incubators, co-working spaces. Funding and support. You know, here in Greenville, these are just the local ones for me, but I want y'all to know that there are probably similar iterations wherever you're at today, wherever you're viewing this podcast on, you know, like Community Works, the SCRA, the City of Greenville Small Business Alliance Program. Ask. You know how I told you guys I want you to haggle? I don't want you to be afraid to ask either. I want you to be like, hey, you know, what's going on? Are there things that can help me or help my business? We've got South Carolina Business One Stop. That is a thing, you know, you saw earlier where Charles had thrown out that link for the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking. They've got one focused on small businesses. Shock of shock. People recognize that small business is the driving motivator. It is what keeps our businesses going. Another one that I use all the time, and I would show it to you if I can unpack it, but I help my kids pull the boxes out of the car, and the one that has this book in it and my mouse pad have disappeared. So that's going to be my hunt later on in the week. But it's the South Carolina Business Law Handbook. Now notice it's South Carolina. So if you're in Maryland or Virginia or DC or wherever you might be, probably not the book for you, but also not the book you feed to the AI to say, hey, use these. But we've got one that's very specific to us. It is a good resource. It is something that you can just sort of flim through. And just like the reference that Charles gave you guys, you're going to have similar things out there to use. I want you to use them. I don't want you to feel like, oh my gosh, you know, I'm a small business and nobody loves me. There's a lot of love. You just got to look for it a little bit. Because with these particular resources, and y'all are using one of the best ones today by being on this program, guys, is by being here, you're being exposed to these resources. You'll now know, hey, you know, I can go to Michelle, or I can go to Shanae, or I can go to Charles, or I can go to whomever and ask questions. And that's what we want. We want you guys to be very open about this. We want you to ask questions with no fear. There is no judgment, man. You guys are here to make my business better. You're here to keep my business from getting in trouble. And so, y'all, at this point, we've still got some time left, but I'm going to open it up to any and all questions, and I'll be happy to emphasize any points you've got. But I wanted to see if y'all had any other questions for me or an area you would like me to go into in further detail. And if you're not prepared for that, I've got some things that I'll talk about, but I wanted to give you guys a chance to have the opportunity to interject, to ask a question, or whatever feels good. And I'll give everybody a chance just to type some in. And while we're doing that, I'm going to go back to our slides a little bit, go to a previous one, and we're going to readdress it if nobody has a question.
Well, I'm going to tell them this is definitely the time to get this information. You know, if you can think of something right now, you know, please ask Doug, put it in the chat, you know, so he can talk to you. Of course, he has his services outside of here. And if you want it more private, you know, you can get with him to see about his services.
Absolutely.
But this is the time.
Thank you,
know,
Michelle.
This is the time. Oh, yes, definitely. Because the thing is, you know, sometimes when you're getting this type of educational information and stuff, it's almost like you're really trying to get it in. You're trying to like process all the information that you receive, and you might think of something after the presentation. You might, you know, something might come to you, and it's like, okay, I'm glad you have services outside of here, and they can contact you about your services and everything, because you know, running a business, and you know this, Doug, running a business, you don't know what's going to pop up.
You know,
Right? You don't know what type of questions. You could be in a meeting for something. Like you say, we definitely need to have a class on negotiations, have a presentation on that, because something could come up where you have to go into maybe a negotiation mode or something like that. And if you're trying to prepare beforehand, then you need a little assistance. There may be some things you don't think about and stuff, you know. So, hey, I'm saying this is the time for, if they have some questions on these key legal steps and everything, think about it for your business. And like I said, if you don't think about it here, contact Doug about his services outside of here and, make an appointment to be able to speak with him, on those things, because we are in a time where the least littlest thing could alter the steps of our business. It could alter how we make money, right? And
Yep.
so this is just a time to be cautious and careful.
It is, Michelle. That's well put. I mean, guys, I don't want y'all to be afraid to ask a single question. If y'all need to get in touch with us, please do. We're going to make this available. But one thing I want to circle back to, and this is something that always kind of freaks people out, is, our IP is not exclusive. Just because you have a patent doesn't mean you don't have a trademark. Just because you got a trade secret doesn't mean you don't have a copyright. And it's like Michelle's saying, we want you guys to be protected, to understand they're all out there. And also in this day and age, understand too that the AI, when they run out there, they may be touching this for other people, Oh, and Shanae has posted some awesome things for us. The procurement fair coming up in 2026. This would be a good one for you guys. Go to this fair, start talking to some people, figure out how these procurement things work. Because guess what? Government contracting and procurement, you guys are on here with the people who can tell you exactly how to serve that. We're talking the Marlo, the Shanae, the Michelle, the Charles show. They deal with this. I think that is beautiful. Unfortunately, you'll have to deal with me again on other things. I'm so sorry about that. But your certification workshop, I think that's an awesome one as well, because you want to make certain, guys, that we're crossing these dots and we're crossing T's, dotting I's. Are we protecting our IP? Are we making certain that we've got our insurance? Do we have our ability to say, hey, I'm protected from the wolves? I've got my LLC set up. I've got things taken care of. And so I want you guys to realize that, hey, and you'll get a copy of this. Everybody feel free. Hey, Tina, I saw your hand go up. What's your question, my dear? Or maybe she's trying to smack me through the screen. I don't know. It is Wednesday. But
No, they need to put it in the chat. They need to put their question in the chat so we can see it.
And feel free, Tina, type it out. Happy to answer any and all questions. But y'all make certain, you're seeing the procurement fair down here at the WMATA. Take advantage of these. There are a lot of benefits for small businesses that I want you guys to be brazen about. I want you to take advantage of it. I want you to go haggle with people. I want y'all to be like, hey, this is my business. It's my bread and butter. Maybe it's your side hustle, and that's okay too. But you want to treat it with respect, and you want others to treat it with respect. And you want to make certain that, hey, we're not starting off as a DBA, because remember, our friends, our compatriots, our trusted allies at LegalZoom, the first thing they try to sell you is something that's going to get you in trouble. I never want that. I want y'all to pretend that we never even spoke those words today. I need y'all to be an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp. I need that. You need that. I don't ever want a situation where you guys are stuck between that rock and a hard place. Ooh, Tina says, hey, what about website terms of use and privacy? Holler at me. I don't do that, Tina, but I got friends who do, and I'm happy to help you with that. Ping me offline. I'll be happy to hook you up with somebody. And no, that's a great question, because, notice Tina is taking us to heart, guys. She's saying, I need a policy. I need this in place. I need this in writing. Because I'm telling y'all, handshakes turn into fistfights way too often for us to be like, oh, this is awesome. You can do it with no handshake. You can do it just an agreement. We'll be good. Don't fall for it. And I don't mean to be a mean attorney saying, hey, don't trust people, but memory fades. I mean, guys, I can't tell you what I had for lunch any day last week. Couldn't do it. In between moving firms and everything else, you get busy. Like Ray had her first car wreck on Sunday. And let me tell y'all, that's what happens on a Sunday afternoon when you think, oh, it's not a bad day. But life happens, and make certain you've got this stuff written down so that you have the ability to go back and see what was written down. Make certain you negotiate it. Haggle, guys. I want today's keyword to be a couple things: cover your butt and haggle. I want y'all to just boil it down to that essence. Make certain you're doing what you should do for your business, and never be afraid to negotiate. Y'all, I don't see any other questions. Michelle or Shanae, or Marlo or Charles, do y'all have anything else to add?
I don't right now, because I'm telling you, I'm like one of the businesses. I am just thinking about all of this excellent information And if I'm a business, it would be like, okay, let me take what he has taught us today. Let me try to review this and see, do I have a checkoff list of doing the right thing? Like,
Yeah.
am I really protecting my business here? Am I making sure that I'm not leaving something that I'm thinking I'm gonna get to later out and that later don't come and then I get in trouble? you know? So yeah, this was great, Doug.
Well, y'all were so fun today, y'all. And I love this. And never be afraid to ask a question again. If you're listening somewhere where you can't, feel free to reach out. My contact info's here. I do give free consultations to SBDC clients, but I want y'all to use the SBDC and the WMATA. I want y'all to know they're here to help. They're here to make certain that your business gets to where it can be. All it takes is for you to say, hey, maybe I should talk to somebody. But Michelle, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for today.
Well, I want to thank you because you are part of the team that helps as well. Please, everybody, be ready to check out Doug again. Okay, this is our upcoming outreach that is given by the Small Business Office, and we want to make sure that you are aware of this. So you scan it, you look at it, you mark it down. We are always an open door for Doug to come back and help us with these educational opportunities for your business because it's so important. And in business, we can't remember everything. That's why there's subject matter people like Doug out there who can just really help us when we need those questions answered, okay? Don't forget also about the procurement fair, okay? So you start marking those dates down. But what I really want to say right now in closing is thank you, thank you, thank you, Doug, for the presentation today. Charles, thank you for always being an excellent partner and on a personal note, a great friend. I want to thank my team behind the scenes. Oh, I can't do nothing without these people. Let me tell y'all something. Thank you to Marlo and Michael, Alicia, Shanae, Sierra, Heather, and Shalonda. That is my amazing team. And they just keep my left side and my right side of my brain working. I hope everybody who showed up today was able to learn something important to help your business grow. We look forward to seeing you, like I said, at the next outreach. And don't forget about the procurement fair on January 27th. The procurement folks are just, they're excited about this, and we will be there to support them. So you'll get a chance to see us face to face if you're able to attend. Remember, y'all, certification is the key to participation. And so we look forward to you being a part of WMATA and seeing our opportunities that'll be for your business. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you guys at the next outreach. Thank you, Doug. Thanks, Charles.
See you guys. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.
That concludes our presentation. Thank you.